This Iowa State Cyclones edition of the Big 12 Experience on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by our own Patreon. Score exclusive perks and contests, and including our NFL win totals contest with a $1,000 prize. Join today at Sports Gambling Podcast /Patreon. And welcome everybody back to the Big 12 College Experience, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. We're talking Iowa State Cyclones. He was a Cyclone. And if you're wondering who you're talking to, I am Moneyline Mac, aka the former video coordinator for Bob Huggins and Frank Martin. And I am joined each and every episode for these team previews in the Big 12. First up, if everybody watching on youtube.com/the college experience, he's got the Iowa State mascot, the logo right behind him on his TV. He was born in Provo, Utah. He's actually got family in Ames, Iowa. How about that, Cyclone fans? He lives in Morgantown, West Virginia. He is Rambling Rush. Rush, what's up, man?
Ryan, I know on this show we can throw the word interesting around a lot. And, maybe we should probably use it a little less, right? Use more better words, but I can promise you this is going to be the most interesting preview that we do for all of the 14 teams this year.
Yes, it will, because there was a dust up in this program, and a guy that was ahead of the curve on the potential announcing of this dust up is a guy that is always fighting a family civil war. He's got ties in the state of Texas, state of Oklahoma. He's got a seed in Orlando, Cincinnati. Troy Chewning, the Big 12 guru. What's going on, man? What's next with these Cyclones?
So I'm really hoping that because I was able to break the news almost 3 weeks before anybody else, that this might be my end. Maybe there's some Iowa State girls out there that are looking for, an inside job. Let's call it that.
That's a good way of putting it. And all right, so let's just get right into it. The storyline of these Iowa State Cyclones, real quick. Let's recap 2022 before we dive into the rabbit in the hole here, because we can go down this rabbit hole for a while. And Iowa State finished last year 4-8, 4-7-1 ATS. Actually had a push. Disappointing year for Matt Campbell after he really had it going for a couple years. They were due for some regression after Brock Purdy and Breece Hall left. Expectations were going to be high here coming into this year for a bounce back. I think everybody and their brother had a labeled this team as a bounce back opportunity, the opposite of TCU because of all the one-score losses. But the starting quarterback got caught for gambling, $7.50 a pop. Hunter Dekkers, actually, we all were high on him coming into this year, except for maybe Troy. Troy's been on him for rigging games, which may be true. Rush, give me your thoughts on these Cyclones now that we don't have Dekkers in the fold.
So I did this team preview with Colby, and I just want to say that's a mulligan on my end. Don't hold me to anything there. Obviously, there were different expectations at the time. My expectations were because they did have 6-1 possession losses, that they would. My big take was they'd go from 4-8 to 8-4. Those things have a way of working out. Except we may know why they lost 6-1 possession games. And it's kind of funny. You brought up Iowa State spread last year against the spread was 4-7-1. But actually, I think their quarterbacks against the spread was 7-4-1. So it depends which Iowa State you ask and for their spread record. So, well, that's that there. I guess if there's any bright side to all of this or something to look forward to, Duggan last year for TCU was not supposed to be the starter. Obviously, Morris went down in that Colorado game. Duggan is now the backup quarterback for the Los Angeles Chargers. I still want to say San Diego, and brought him to a national championship. So if there is any hope or any of this to that, hey, Who knows, that could happen. But yeah, in terms of the one possession games and last year's records, it's just who on that Iowa State team you ask.
Now, as these, because I don't think it's going to be just Hunter Dekkers. That's the big issue. If it's just Hunter Dekkers, then I'm kind of forced into an opinion where they might be better if their quarterback's not fucking rigging games and betting on shit. Like they just have a guy out there that wants to play football and win games. Holy crap, what a fucking concept. Yeah, I might be forced into that take if it ends up just being Hunter Dekkers. But if they have, a couple of starters and a couple of depth guys on both sides of the ball that end up having even 3 or 4 game suspensions, it's just going to be, already off the rails before they can even get a start going. And it really seems like it's going in that direction.
And Troy, you mentioned it. It might be better with the quarterback. The next guy up is going to be Rocco Becht, son of former great Mountaineer, or it could be the talented freshman that everybody's been hyping up, JJ Kohl. We'll see what happens. Obviously, we all of a sudden have a August quarterback controversy or competition in Ames. But before we dive into this episode, that was already pre-recorded, so this is the disclaimer part of the episode. We filmed this, I'd say, an hour and a half before the Hunter Dekkers thing went down.
Mm-hmm.
So take our predictions with a grain of salt. We probably will do a 2.0 version of this in our season previews, our final season previews. I think, Rush, you said it last year, our amends to our Iowa State predictions.
Yes,
so
they will get amended.
They will get amended, but these are our initial Iowa State Cyclone 2023 football previews.
To make it very clear, too, is a lot of the information that we did discuss and kind of the timing of their scheduling wasn't all Hunter Dekkers related. Like this could actually still exactly go down. Now you may have a quarterback that's not betting against you, so it could still be right on or even better than what we're doing. So that's why we felt comfortable enough to keep the remaining of this preview for Iowa State.
This 2023 Iowa State Cyclones preview is sponsored by the Sports Gambling Podcast Patreon. It is a perfect place for a diehard DGen. Sign up for the Patreon to get access to our exclusive contests, including an NFL wins total contest with a $1,000 free first place prize, plus a monthly SGPN Stories podcast, ad-free, uncensored show highlighting the best stories from decades and decades of being a DGen. There's even a Discord channel for all you patrons out there. The Sports Gambling Podcast has and will always give out their picks for free. That's for free. The Patreon is a great way to support the network and fight against the corporate gambling out there. The sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. Reminder, that's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. Yep, and we are back on the Big 12 College Experience talking Cyclones from Iowa State. Looking ahead to this year, transitioning over-under. Everybody watching on youtube.com/TCE is at the bottom there on the ticker. Over-under set at 5.5. Their odds to win the Big 12 set at 80-1, 300-1 to win the national championship, like Brock Purdy's back there. Early lean here, Rush. Do you like the over before we dive into the schedule?
Yep. I think it's just what I brought up earlier is teams that usually lose those one possession games the year before find a way to win them the next year. So just off of that alone, I'm going to say yes.
I have to lean with the over as well because I mean, trying to get into it, but, we were going over their biggest games of the year doing the non-con. Obviously, Iowa State is a big it's going to come down to which punter can get the best bounce or something like that. But, it's going to be a really, really big game. And I think Iowa State's going to get that one. And that just makes me right away lean like, wow, if they win that big non-con game, they're getting to bowl season. So, yes.
First team to a safety wins.
Yeah.
You know what is wild? In a year they went 4-8. They finally beat Iowa under Matt Campbell against Kirk Ferentz. So, yeah, they won 10-7. So it might be another one, 1st to 10 wins. Rush, we don't really have to talk portal on this one.
No, we do not.
Was there anything that stood out in the offseason of key returners / anybody that potentially they added?
Well, I think what Troy said is the Hutchinson how do you fill those gaps? Do you fill it with two different receivers? Do you start getting the tight ends involved? Especially now that Brock is healthy, supposedly, and hopefully he still is, getting his production back. I just think it's they don't, and the thing is their transfer portal losses and additions, it's not really those that move the needle. But what does that speak to? I think that speaks to the culture that Matt Campbell has created. The guys that don't want to leave, that they're clearly have bought in, that Matt Campbell probably telling them at the end of the last season, guys, it didn't go the way we thought it was going to go. We went 4-8, but look how close we were. We stay here another season. I mean, they had, I think their center too went to the NFL, but their center,
that's the only guy they lost on the other line as the center.
Yeah, and they got a new from UNI who they opened up the schedule against. Their offensive coordinators, now the offensive line coach. So they have a great, on paper, offensive line, Iowa State does. So it's that typical, cornbread, getting ready to get ready in the trenches, and hopefully your specialist can follow it up.
Yeah, it just seems returning, Brock and Norton in that backfield and only losing a center, and then you lose a guy like Hutchinson. It might be ground and pound time even more than before here for Iowa State. And that might be, they might run with that West Virginia style that we're predicting, no clock stoppage on the first down. If you can get your corn-fed guys going downhill, you could be a tough team to deal with at home.
Yeah, I think that you mentioned it with the clock stoppage, teams like Iowa State, Iowa, I think we're going to see more and more dogs stay in these games, especially.
They're going to be able to extend that competitive time period. Oh yeah, and just causing that pressure on the favored teams instead of it occurring with 9 minutes left in the third quarter. Now it's, oh man, they're already walking out on the field holding up the fours, and we're only up by 9 or 8 points or something. Just asking for mistakes.
No doubt. And I mean, you look at the defensive side of things with what Iowa State brought back. I almost said Brock back because I'm thinking of Brock Purdy. TJ Tampa back in the secondary. That's going to be crucial. But I think Rush hit the nail on the head with this team. It comes down to the offensive side. We're talking about limiting possessions, playing the ball control style of play. Hunter Dekkers can't turn the ball over 14, 15 times in a 12-game season, or that you could throw that game manager role out the window, and all of a sudden you got a quarterback controversy. So I think that's the main headline in Ames for this year. Rush, are you looking at anything else personnel-wise with these Cyclones? There's nothing to talk about with the portal because they don't believe in it.
Yeah, well, exactly, and
which is refreshing, by the way.
That is fair. I mean, if you want to look at one portal guy and someone that needs to step up for Hutchinson is Jaden Higgins. That's going to be your we'll see guy, because you're going to absolutely need production out of him at any whatever it costs. He has to find a way open, because obviously with your quarterback in Dekkers and fear of the turnover, you got to find one of those guys has to get open to relieve the offensive line, to relieve the running game. Is that, if you're talking about dire needs for this team, it's that. And I think Jaden Higgins has a great chance to step into that role. Now, we're not saying he's going to be Hutchinson, of course, but at least make up some of that production.
Yeah, I think between, you brought up TJ Tampa and Miles Purchase returning, that's where they're going to really have to lean, is on their outside corners on defense. They're going to have to ask those guys to really, really lock it down and allow their it's almost the opposite way around, give them more time to cause pressure instead of, oh no, we have a weakness out here. Let those guys get right up in the faces of the Big 12 wide receivers and jam them, and see if you can throw off some of those ticky-tack timing plays that get chunks on first down. Some of these Big 12 quarterbacks are so it's like they're calibrated, the first 12 plays of the game are already burnt into their head. If you can throw that timing off a little bit, I think Purchase and TJ Tampa have a chance to be a pretty good cornerback duo.
Yeah, Quinn Ewers is the one that comes right to mind, where he's programmed. Yeah, he's as talented as anybody, but you get him off script. You make him throw to more than 30 yards, he's going to airmail it by 20 yards. We saw that in Stillwater last year, time and time again. Let's talk about Campbell, man. He is in his 8th year now in Ames, and he is sitting at 46 and 42 overall, 32 and 31. I did get a kick out of some of the comments on our Big 12 coaches rankings where the Kansas State guys are saying that Matt Campbell's overrated. No, Matt Campbell's not overrated. I know he's 32 and 31. You have to remember where this program was when he took over. It was them in Kansas neck and neck for the biggest dud in the league. Matt Campbell's been unbelievable there. Yes, they had a down year, but the proof is in the pudding. The years before that, the Big 12, 5-4, 8-1, 5-4, 6-3, and he had a Big 12 championship game appearance against Oklahoma in the COVID year. So he's been a model of consistency. He's been great for Iowa State. What do you think of Rush? What are your thoughts on Matt Campbell? I believe all three of us had him in our top 5 coaches in the league when we ranked him.
Yeah, well, I think it's the perfect situation of they need each other. Is Matt Campbell needs Iowa State and Iowa State needs Matt Campbell. And I know every year you hear, especially with everything going on with Northwestern right now and other schools in the Midwest looking for that next coach. And they're like, oh, should Matt Campbell come or should Matt Campbell be the next coach of the Detroit Lions? Not to confuse with Dan Campbell, but that was talked at one time if he should, or should he go to the Chicago Bears, kind of that Midwest guy. And it's like, no, you need to be like the Joe Paterno or the Don Nehlen or the Frank Beamer of your school. Like, this is what you said is, as a West Virginia fan, the 2 automatic wins every year were Iowa State and Kansas. And not only did you take this Iowa State team to, hey, at least we can play spoiler, but now I know it's the COVID year, but you're winning a Fiesta Bowl against the Oregon Ducks. And not only winning it, you crushed them. Yeah. So I think he's found his place. Keep doing what he's doing. Only to bring it up for the 3rd time. But if your one down year is the one where you're losing 6 1-possession games, but you still finally beat Iowa, I mean, you're in the right place, man. And you're also in a place where there's a lot more patience. So you try to go somewhere else, that patience can run a lot thinner. So if I'm him. This is my career. I'm not leaving Iowa State under any means. I'm there the next 20 years.
I just think he does such a good job with competing with the teams that he has to around him and just not having anywhere near that talent level and still putting teams out there every year that are, like you said, they're no longer, they're not like you're chalking them up for a win or a loss. Like, you're looking at Iowa State every year going, we could get blown out. This could be a really tight game, but you're never really thinking it's going to be easy peasy nowadays. Mm-hmm. So just that in itself. Yeah. It's the same. You got to be careful what you wish for in terms of patience. You want a guy that can win you 10 games, but how often is that sustainable at Iowa State when you could have a guy that's going to compete for bowls on a regular basis? Might want to take that not for granted,
Yeah, exactly. It's not.
Yeah, and I think that they just have thrived at being the underdog during the Matt Campbell era in Iowa State. And yeah, that's a perfect transition into to let everybody know we are brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. The NFL season is right around the corner, and Underdog Pick'em is a great way to get down on plenty of NFL player props and is available in tons of market. Plus, plenty of opportunities to win their daily MLB contest. And, of course, make sure to enter the Best Ball Mania where first place gets $3 million. Head over to UnderdogFantasy.com and use the promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit up to $100. That is the UnderdogFantasy.com promo code SGPN. And we're back on the Big 12 College Experience, talking Iowa State Cyclones. Year number 8 in the Matt Campbell era, bounce back potential candidate, we think, and it will start. Oh man, this is a tricky game to start because this little brother here, the Northern Iowa Panthers are coming to Ames. Northern Iowa has given them fucking fits in the past. Mm-hmm. What do you think here, Rush? Are we all taking the Cyclones to get by, but another close game with little brother?
Do you know what's funny is this their non-con, the Northern Iowa, and Ohio reminds me of a lot from the regional perspective when we were covering Houston with UTSA
Yeah,
and Rice
no
and
doubt.
TCU. It has that same feel where it's like, especially that game at Ohio, it's like, you better be really careful here, Iowa State. Like, yeah, you should be able to bounce back this year, but you gotta start off on the right foot. I think Iowa State will win this game, but kind of like we've been talking about with BYU and Houston. A lot of us had UTSA beating Houston, but my point is, at a minimum, I'm probably taking the points here with UNI.
Yeah, the more I look at this one, the more I'm debating whether I want the points from UNI or not, and just stay away from it completely.
Yeah,
I don't think the outright win is there for Northern Iowa, but I do think that playing on that spread it's going to be a more challenging game than people at first glance would take.
And to put in perspective, they have not played Northern Iowa well in the last 4 meetings. 2 years ago, when they had Brock Purdy and Breece Hall, who are pretty good in the NFL, they only beat them 16-10, and they got a touchdown late. They were favored by 28 in that one. Time before that, in 2019, they only won 29-26. They blew it open late, 42-24. But Northern Iowa beat them in 2016 in Matt Campbell's first year in Ames, 25-20. So, yeah, I'm with you. I'm taking the points all day here, especially if I'm getting 3 touchdowns. But we all got them at 1-0, and that sets up the showdown of the Cy-Hawk series, another edition. I don't even know what year it is in this rivalry. This is the first 1-10 wins, maybe 11. 11-10 is going to be the final. Rush,
walk-off safety.
Yeah, walk-off extra point. Yeah,
there you go.
Who you got here?
So Cy-Hawk, they don't. Neither school has that typical home field advantage where the grass is a little longer. They both know the terrain. They both know they're mirrors. I mean, they're the same people. It's which play of
Spider-Man meme.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what this is. It's who's going to make kind of that last boneheaded mistake. That's what this game is. Unfortunately for Iowa State, I think Iowa gets them back this year. However, if this makes anyone happier, clearly they beat Iowa last year and then didn't do well the rest of the season, but then they lose to Iowa and do well the rest of the season. So maybe there is something to that, but I think they start off 1-1 and lose to Iowa.
I think it's just way too much of an Iowa State script for them to actually win this game and move to 2-0 and drop the game at Ohio than to drop this Iowa game. I think this one's a little more gettable. I think, man, they might put 18 or 20 on the board and a real blowout barn burner, 20-10.
I'm gonna say, because Iowa had been kicking their ass for years, I'm gonna take the Cyclones to get it done, but I don't feel great about this. I think it comes down the wire, but that sets up, if they do get by Iowa, trap game of trap games. Ohio's picked to win the MAC, and this wait until this spread comes out and Iowa State's only laying like 3 or 4, and everybody's like, oh shit, what's going on here? Why is the Big 12 school only laying 3 or 4 points against a MAC school? Rush, if they beat Iowa, is this a letdown spot? I know you have them losing to Iowa.
Yes. I think regardless, Iowa State, whether they beat Iowa or lose to Iowa, there is going to be a hangover, at least in the first half at Ohio. And I think this game, I'm looking more at what the first half spread is than the game actual spread, because I think there will be a little bit like of that. Why did the hell did we schedule a game in Athens? Like, I know Ohio came here last year and they killed Ohio last year, but that'll definitely, I do think no matter how close it is in the first half, I think Iowa State will break it open maybe sometime in the fourth quarter. I do think Iowa State will win this game, but better be very careful. Very careful.
This just seems like the ultimate Viet Cong booby trap of a spot. I mean, they play Ohio, and then they're already going to be looking forward to that first league game, and it's Oklahoma State. It's already a team that they really have a pretty good success rate against, and they're thinking like, yeah, we get to start off the league. We beat Iowa again this year. We got Oklahoma State coming in, and they just lay an egg here against Iowa on the road, or against Ohio on the road, that Yeah, I just see this one. It's almost too much of the exactly what Iowa State would do story arc.
Yeah, man. I think I got to agree with you here because I don't think that they're going to get through this thing undefeated. That's my main thing. I think if you give them the Iowa game, they drop Ohio because they're going to be gearing up for Big 12 play. That time is already announced too. It's a noon start time, 11
I
a.m.
already put it up
Central.
there.
Yeah, I think we all agree that they're going to be 2-1 headed into that Oklahoma State game. It's just a matter of which one they get or which one they drop. So 2-1 headed through 3, going to a game that's always a one possession game. Stillwater here. This game's in Ames, a rematch of another close game with these guys. What do you think here, Rush? This game's always fantastic.
It is always fantastic, and this is definitely a 50-50 game. It could potentially be a get-right game for all we know, is what we were talking about. Because it is a 50-50 game, and because it's always just that, potentially that last possession wins, I will give it to the home team in this case, and I will say Iowa State will beat Oklahoma State.
Yeah, this one was I had to pick based on location. This is the last thing it comes down to. And Oklahoma State's lost some really, really dumb games they've needed to win in Ames. So I don't know if that changes this year. This just seems like a last possession. They get it done because they're at home and they're feeling confident. And maybe if this game was in Stillwater, it would be like a two touchdown difference. But I don't know if they win this game on the road. I think I'm going to have to go with Iowa State.
I'll complete the sweep here. And to put in perspective, the last 5 years these two teams have played, the final scores 20-14, 24-21, 24-21 again, 34-27, 48-42. You could rewind all the way back when they ended Brandon Whedon's campaign, undefeated season. I feel like the home team always wins. I'm with you. I'm on the Cyclones as well. Then they go to play the other team in Oklahoma. They go to Norman. I drew a blank there on where I almost said Bedlam, but
you've only been there a million times, right?
Yeah, Norman. They're going to Norman to play the Sooners. They might be able to get this one. Matt Campbell's played the Sooners really, really well.
So Oklahoma's always lucked out this year with not having to play Kansas State their last year in the Big 12. But when do they usually play Kansas State? And usually, when does that loss occur? It's usually that end of September, the final Saturday. Iowa State's going to beat Oklahoma. They're going to do the Oklahoma sweep.
Troy, your Sooners?
I'm not giving Iowa State this one with that much confidence. I definitely could see it happening, but it's just for the same reason that I gave him the Oklahoma State game. I have to give Oklahoma the edge in Norman. If this one was in Ames, I think it would be the opposite way around. I would still pick them to go 1-1 just based on which of these two teams are playing at home.
I gave it to the Cyclones because of who's on deck for the Sooners. It seems like they always have that hiccup the Saturday before the Texas game. Hell, Texas does too. So by group, by committee, we got the Cyclones going into Norman, sending them to the SEC off right. And that gives them 4-1 with the TCU Horned Frogs coming to town to start October. Payback here because TCU kindly beat the shit out of them 62-14 last year. Payback here, Rush?
No, I think after you win, what did we say? You're 4-1 at this point. You beat Oklahoma, you beat Oklahoma State. Maybe there's an Iowa win in there somewhere. I think we all agree that there'll be a split between Iowa and Ohio. I think, you got to settle down a little bit, a little too hungover. I think TCU, who's, kind of the opposite we've talked about last year, and maybe will be the opposite again this year in terms of one possessions going their way and not. But I think TCU is going to win this one.
Yeah, I had TCU winning this one. If they're 4-1 heading into the TCU game, I feel more confident about TCU winning that one. But I just don't think there's going to be too many teams that have a chance to get any kind of separation. Like if you win your first couple of league games, there's going to be teams that come in there ready to, crabs in a bucket and get you back down in the muck with everybody else.
Yeah.
So I just can't see teams getting to that 3-0 or 4-0 in the league marks. Someone's going to fuck you up.
Yeah, I kind of think they're going to get this one and then set up a trap game that's next on deck. That's at Cincinnati, but either way, I don't think they're going to get through this road trip with one loss. Do you got Iowa State going into Cincinnati and getting this one done with Matt Campbell being from Ohio?
Yes.
Yeah,
They'll beat Cincinnati. Cincinnati's
personally, I had
terrible.
them losing the TCU game and then beating Cincinnati on the road.
Cincinnati. Okay. So,
I got to start with these previews, remembering who I picked earlier. We've already done this Cincinnati, but no, Iowa State will win this one.
Yeah, I think I gave Cincinnati the game, and I'll stick to that. So I'll give them the TCU, but by committee, we all have them at 5-2, headed to Waco.
Mm-hmm.
Tough spot here. What do you think, Rush?
It's a tough spot, but they do have a bye week before. However, with
Baylor got
let's see, Baylor,
Cincinnati,
the week before or after?
Yeah, the week before. So they both are coming off at Cincinnati.
Oh, that's right. When we had the Cincinnati one, we mixed this up. There we go.
Yeah,
it's funny how things go full circle there. Dude, this is the game that's like you could convince me one way or another. I think it's the biggest 50-50 game. Because of that, I'm going to go with the home team. I know that Iowa State will get a week off before this, but dude, weird things happen in Waco, right, Troy? So I think Baylor wins this one, and I'm going to give a loss to Cincinnati.
Yeah, I'm thinking that if Matt Campbell can right the ship a little bit between the TCU and Cincinnati part of the schedule, however that ends up turning out, if he can right the ship right away and go down to Waco and win this game, then they're obviously very serious Big 12 championship competitors. But I don't really see that. I think Baylor gets this one.
This game is always close. It seems like these guys always play like the Big 12 game of the year when they go against each other.
Yeah, well, I got it pulled up right now. 31-24 last year, 31-29, 38-31, 23-21. This is just like Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, Baylor, and Iowa State all play one possession games against each other. I'll lean to Waco here as well.
I love the Big 12. Yeah. I love it. The conference of the middle class.
No doubt. So we got them at 5-3 headed into the month of November. We got Kansas coming to town, rematch of a 14-11, a game that Iowa State should have fucking won. They missed all those field goals. Payback here, Rush?
Yeah, this is payback. This is when you start getting those one possession games coming back to you. They'll beat Kansas, especially this late in the season. People are really high on Kansas. I think they're a big mystery, and who knows if Jalen Daniels is even healthy at this time of the season. So I have payback here for Iowa State.
Yeah, I had the same idea, just that very easily should have been a win and don't really get it done. They got to come to Ames this year. I think payback is, even if Jalen Daniels is healthy, I think payback is on the schedule here.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, we got him at 6-3, which would hit the over by November 4th. Another one that I feel like there's going to be a couple that are going to hit these overs early in the Big 12 in the basement. So
they're going to do a little bit better in that non-con than people are expecting, and it's going to allow a couple of more teams to hit overs.
No doubt. And that gets us to the next one at BYU. We just did the BYU preview. Rush and I both took BYU. Troy, what do you think here?
I think BYU, I mean, this is at elevation, going out there. It's starting to become a roller coaster area, the part of the season where you're winning for revenge, losing to Baylor, winning for revenge against Kansas. I think BYU gets this one.
How big of a deficit, or how big is the score difference in this game, Troy? What do you think?
I would say at that 8, 10, 11 point range.
I was gonna say 2 touchdowns.
I think it's a 30-40 point game.
Oh yeah,
I think there's I brought this up a lot. There's the revenge factor to this. It's Iowa State didn't want BYU in the Big 12 years ago, and I think and the thing is
the one.
Yeah, and they got Texas next, a little bit of a look at it's not a look ahead for either team because BYU has Oklahoma next and Iowa State has Texas next. So I don't think there's any look ahead to it, but I think BYU kills Iowa State. in this game.
I just think Iowa State plays too slow to just get absolutely drilled. So that's why I was like, 2 touchdowns, 10-14.
Yeah. Until Dekkers throws 5 pick sixes.
Yeah, well, I guess that is one way to get it to go away, because Slovis ain't gonna light it up. So, so we got about 6-4 headed into the final 2. Here we go, final game in Ames Senior Day. Oh, these pussies are coming into the cold, into Ames, Iowa, the cornfields. Texas final road game in the Big 12. Horns down here, Rush.
Yeah, we know where this is going.
One last time.
This
is easy.
They're not winning in Ames. They're just not.
Troy?
I mean, if they get rolled that hard by BYU, they're not beating either Texas or Kansas State to end the schedule. But I think this is just a standalone spot where Iowa State gets their one last, let's bend him over and spank the shit out of him. And this just seems like Texas is going to get, I don't know. This one seems like a 2-touchdown game that Iowa State just kind of controls the whole time.
Yeah, I forget what year it was. Maybe it was 2015 when Charlie Strong went there and they just completely beat the shit out of them physically. It was 24-0 or something. It's in the cold, windy. It's good. Texas is not winning this game.
Nope.
Book that. Iowa State money line, whatever it is, book whenever that comes out, hammer it. 7-4, going to Farmageddon. Rush, do you have them finishing 8-4 or 7-4? Rematch of a hell of a game, by the way, 10-9 last year.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. If I'm not mistaken, this was the famous 10-9 game last year. And I'm a man of, I guess, principle. I don't know if this fully applies here, but like I said, the one possession games have a weird way of evening themselves out. They were 4-8 last year. I think they'll be 8-4 this year. I have them winning Farmageddon, another one possession game, and just mirroring each other. It's if sports are too weird like that.
Yeah, I really think even with this being in Manhattan, it's basically a 50-50. I personally had Kansas State winning. I think their quarterback play is going to be a little bit more, not necessarily better, but it's not going to be worse. That's there's a chance that Hunter Dekkers completely blows up. Because of that, I just side with Kansas State a little bit.
I'm going K-State. They're so good at home, and that it's going to be senior day for a bunch of those offensive linemen that all came back. I think it's an emotional game. I think that they grind out another. I'm pulling up the history of these two because I feel like it's a one possession. Actually, they've had a couple blowouts, so they're not in that camp of every game's a one possession. But I'll take K-State in a 20-17 type game. Grind it out. I got them at 7-5. Troy's got them at 7-5. Rush at 8-4, easily hitting the over 5.5 in a bounce back spot. All right, so we saw kind of the floor last year, 4-8. Is the floor 4-8 once again? If things, let's say Dekkers doesn't get any better and they keep losing the turnover battle and lose a bunch of one possession games. Rush.
I think they'll at least go 6-6 this year. They'll at least get a couple of those one possession games back. And I know technically the floor for anyone could be all hell breaks loose and, everyone's injured type of thing. We're talking realistic floor here. I think they at least go bowling, go 6-6.
I could see the floor being 5 wins if they lose that Iowa game and lose the Ohio game or something like that. If they start off the non-con and they're 1-2 instead of 2-1, I could see one of those Oklahoma games slipping away, and then maybe 5, maybe 6. But I mean, you really saw the floor last year, and I think this team is about as good as that team was last year. So
I agree with that.
I would definitely lean towards that. They're probably a game better at worst.
I'm going to say the floor is the exact same, only because they play only 4 home games, and then they have a road spot in the non-conference. So they don't play 3 home games in September. So, I mean, they're going to play a bunch of close games throughout. Maybe they don't get the benefit of a bounce back, and they lose a bunch of close games once again. I think maybe 4. What would you say the ceiling is?
8-4. I think they'll achieve the ceiling. I think their ceiling is 8-4.
Could they get to Dallas?
Well, I have one of those losses
non-con
being
loss,
a
yeah.
non-con, so that would be 3 losses in the Big 12. Yeah, they would have to win some tiebreakers, but yeah, they could get to Dallas.
They would have to win that Baylor game or that BYU game on the road. That would be the one that would be the one that would break them to what I would think their ceiling would be. And if it were to be, if they get lucky enough that it's 8 instead of 9, just how the non-con goes and they recover during the conference schedule, I don't know. Maybe they beat Baylor in Waco and they slide into, a tie for second place or something like that, and they get in on a tiebreaker. But
I agree with you, Troy.
I think the ceiling is maybe 9, but probably 8.
I think that Baylor game's their most pivotal game of the year.
Everything's gonna happen. Oh yeah,
and it being at Waco, being away. I think
it determines both teams. Like one of those teams is gonna come out of that game and be like, "We can win this fucking league."
I almost want to say the winner of that game will go to the Big 12 championship.
Oh yeah,
almost. We'll as we get closer to predictions and
if it's Baylor, yes. If it's Iowa State, maybe not, but possible.
That's why I'm saying I almost.
Yeah, I think 9. If they can get through the first 3 unscathed, 3-0, I think that they could get to 9 wins, go 6-3 with the non-con. They don't really avoid their top teams at all, but I also think that we all think that they're going to bounce back and they bring back this experience. So yeah, we're all on the over. There's another over for us in the Big 12 on the bottom side. So Rush, tell everybody where to find you before we proceed into next up will be Kansas, the Jayhawks.
There we go. At Rambling Rush, Twitter, Instagram. Ryan and I also do our West Virginia podcast at Ryan and Rush Show. Also on Twitter, Instagram. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. And, of course, appreciate all the support.
Troy, sorry.
Oh no, it's all good. I didn't realize you were just gonna roll right through it, but
yeah.
You can just find me at Troy Chewning, just my full name on Twitter. If you comment on any of these YouTube videos, there's probably 100% chance that at some odd hour of the day, I'm gonna comment back and be like, "Listen, motherfucker."
You heard him. Yep, you heard him.
Go ahead. Let's get into some dumb debates online. Oh yeah, I got a shout out. Selling at the deadline. Eat shit Mets.
Yeah, eat shit Pitt. Muck the Fets.
Muck the
so
Fets.
yeah, I absolutely love it. But yeah, you mentioned it. If you want to leave a comment on any of these episodes, you like it, you think we're a bunch of jackasses, leave a comment. Only 5 stars though. Check us out on all our platforms: Apple, Spotify, YouTube. At the TCE, we all come together on YouTube under one umbrella to go check out the college football experience. Pick Dundee likes the Cyclones as well this year in a bounce back. Can't wait to have it. You can find me at Moneyline_Mac. Can't wait to watch the Cyclones in 2023, and we'll be here all year. Go Cyclones and let it ride.